Arequipa, Peru, the final leg of a journey. A voyage across the miles and across the centuries. Inside this van is a kind of time capsule. It carries a secret from one of the mightiest civilizations ever to rise and fall in South America. Valuable beyond price, fragile beyond measure, it is a frozen piece of history, a treasure from the past. She is known as the Ampato Maiden. The Andes Mountains of South America, spine of a great pre-Columbian empire, the Inca. In less than a century, they conquered millions of people. For them, these mountains were more than just landscape. They were gods. And when the gods became angry, for the Inca, there was only one thing to do: to perform a hallowed ceremony. An offering to the spirits. And it would end with the sacrifice of a young girl, the Ampato Maiden. "500 years later, in September 1995, two men stumbled upon the frozen remains of that same girl on Mount Ampato in southern Peru.
When we climbed the peak and we found the mummy, then we knew it. We were really onto something, that they had not just worshipped it from afar, but they'd actually climbed to the summit and made these sacrificial offerings.
For mountaineer and archaeologist Dr. Johan Reinhard, finding the Inca Maiden was the culmination of 16 years' work in the Andes. But the adventure is not over. Only a month after coming down Ampato with the mummy, Johan is now preparing a return expedition to the site of his find. For he believes there are more artifacts on the mountain that will shed light on the life and death of the mysterious frozen girl.
We've seen some really intriguing stuff on the mountain, but it makes it even more urgent is that the weather could change at any time, and that the news is going to leak, and there are going to be these treasure hunters that are going to start to also look for these sites. So we really have to try and get there as fast as we can.
Johan is heading back to the summit of Mount Ampato, at nearly 21,000 feet, where the mountains touch the sky.
One of the principal interests I have in life is the mountains. Ampato is the biggest peak in the entire region and the most important deity. Even still today, the people are worshiping it virtually every opportunity that they have. I think the most telling statement once was when I was walking with an old man and he said, "You know, for us, the mountains are alive." And to me, that was the key.
And so Johan sets off on a journey that will take him along the very same path once traveled by the Inca Maiden. She was Capacocha, chosen for the gods. Escorted by priests and attendants, she may have been sent out from the Inca capital of Cusco on her spiritual procession. A 160-mile journey to the Huaca, or Sacred Mountain. Traveling through mountain passes and down into river valleys, she walked for days on end. The voyage itself an act of devotion. Following in her footsteps, Johann is on his own pilgrimage, trying to unravel the mystery of Inca sacrifice. But the real answers may lie down in the city of Arequipa. Jose Antonio Chavez have assembled a special team to study the Ampato mummy. It's one of only 4 ever recovered. Three days into Johann's ascent, nearby Mount Sabancaya is erupting, spewing ash a mile into the sky. It's these eruptions that actually make the expedition possible. The volcanic ash helps melt the mountain ice, allowing Johann's team to leave base camp at 16,300 feet and to venture up to areas long lost under Ampato's snow cap. But the eruptions could stop at any time, inviting the snows to bury Ampato once again, and with it, any remaining signs of the Inca. For now, Johann and his men move as fast as they can up the mountain. Like the Inca maiden all those years ago, they are leaving the familiar world behind and entering the domain of the mountain god. Once, only the priests were allowed to visit this sacred realm. For up here, anything could happen, as Johann and his team are about to discover. At 19,200 feet, they've come upon 6 mysterious stone circles. These rock patterns have been known to mark ancient Inca burial sites. They find something. A gold Inca figurine, a ceremonial offering to the gods, 5 centuries old. But this is only the beginning.
What we have is a flexed body. You can see the head here that's been, it's lost its hair, it's been colored in red, and it has like this crown around it. The knees are flexed here, and then it has several offerings placed, right beside it. And these are miniature offerings, and really fine Inca ceramic work. Over in here we have a small male figurine with an erect penis right at the place where the penis would be of the mummy. So this is the first time we've seen something like that.
It's a child, most likely another sacrifice, surrounded by ritual offerings. This is the first time more than one victim has ever been found on the same high mountain, offered to the same god.
Usually the relationship that people have with mountain gods is one of reciprocity. If they make the offerings, the mountains will treat them well. And if they don't pay the respects that the mountain gods are due, then they're going to suffer the consequences.
To appease their gods, others would have to die on this lonely mountaintop, as Johann will soon find out. In the shadow of the volcano, the team's astonishing series of finds reaches a climax. They have found yet another body. It appears to be a young girl, just a child. She sits huddled in the dirt, surrounded by ceremonial pottery. The men work around the clock to remove the pottery that encases the body.
pots are frozen in solid, so we have to put hot water in around them and then try and dig in with our fingers and just slowly and laboriously work underneath the pots.
Finally, after 3 days, the mummy is ready to be freed from her icy grave.
It's more than what I expected. I mean, it's got not only the nice ceramics and other pieces that came with it, it's obviously female. Presumably a young woman from the size of sandals, perhaps 12 years old or so.
In all, 3 children, all offered on the same mountain. But in their sacrifice, they were venerated by the Inca. The Capacocha, the chosen ones, had this in common. On the path to the summit, each must have been frightened, but proud. For they were going to live with the gods, to become gods themselves in a way, to represent their people in the hereafter. Like the Ampato maiden, only the beautiful, the unblemished and the innocent could aspire to such a fate. Far up on the mountain, time is pressing, and the summit pulls Johann onward. He climbs the last 2,000 feet, following as always the path of the maiden. Signs of her passing still cling to the mountainside. Clumps of grass and bits of rope along the old Inca trail now lie in the open after centuries under snow.
Son of a gun. Can you imagine what it was like trying to do this 500 years ago? Those guys were something else. They obviously had to have been climbers. I mean, they had to know how to do this. We're close to the height of Mount McKinley, and they didn't climb that until early this century. So it's hard to imagine the guys coming up in sandals, cutting steps, putting in grass and wood and all that stuff to get up to the top of one of these peaks. They were the first true climbers. The Incas broke a psychological barrier that existed even in the Alps till recent times of going up into what they thought were the homes of the gods. There's rockfall and snowstorms, and for them, it's the god who's reacting to them being on the mountain. See where they have some wood that's been burnt. They would make campfires. There's also a lot of wood that would have been used perhaps for constructing tents. Obviously they had the grass here used for insulation.
All this was a staging area, a place to prepare for the event to come, the sacrifice. The night before, the Ampato maid would have been brought here, adorned in silver, cloaked in the finest wool.
She would have been obviously tired and affected by the altitude. Anyone would be. I think she must have had an incredible courage. Her willingness, such as it were, to go and face death is also based on the idea that she herself would then enter into the another life with the deities and become, by this process, in essence, deified.
5 a.m. in Arequipa, and the team has been working on the maiden for 7 grueling hours.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
After 8 nighttime sessions, the team has achieved a kind of victory. The outer wrap comes off to reveal the girl's well-preserved arm. At last, the delicate figure of the Ampato maiden emerges. Frozen close to the moment of death, she is almost alive. And she brings with her a startling picture of her time, an array of cultural and biological information. The elegant raiments are those of an Inca noblewoman. At first glance, the discoloration of her skin suggests she may have died of exposure. But this is only the beginning. In time, science will uncover more of her secrets. Up on the narrow ridge of the summit, Johan is about to complete his journey. The same journey that once transformed a young maiden into the highest offering of her people.
And she gradually went higher and higher, and it got more difficult to breathe. She was also getting into totally different terrains that she had never seen before. Extremes of cold, extremely steep ascents. She probably was already being really affected, I think, by the whole majesty of it. Just to reach the culmination of this peak that was a major deity within her culture.
And then the moment of her death was at hand.
She was given an intoxicating drink as part of the ritual. And she certainly would have been very cold, exhausted. All of this would have brought her very close to death. She might have died of exposure, or they might actually have killed her. But they buried her on the summit and left her as an offering to the gods.
It was a cruel death, but full of meaning. For she had gone to join her gods in their timeless realm.
This was something done that was meant to last and meant to have meaning for them for eternity.
Yet still a crucial mystery lingers. Exactly how was the Ampato maiden sacrificed? How was she slain on that mountaintop? 7 months after Johan's journey, the maiden would travel thousands of miles to the United States, where a team of scientists at Johns Hopkins University would uncover new clues about her final moments. These state-of-the-art CAT scan images reveal once and for all how she died. Not of exposure, not of suffocation, but a violent blow to the head that fractured her skull and ended her life. It seems like a terrible fate. But she believed she gave her life for the gods and her people. And who can say that she was wrong? For in a way, the Ampato maiden did achieve a kind of immortality on this mountain peak. The Inca Empire came and went in less than 100 years. Yet she speaks to us still. And through her, the Inca live again.
Juanita, uno de los hallazgos más importantes para nuestra cultura andina y que nos revela muchos secretos desconocidos del Imperio Inca, en esta visita itinerante que está haciendo por todo el Perú, tenemos la suerte de tenerlo en nuestro Museo de Caraz y queremos invitar a todo el público caracino y también de la provincia de Huaylas para que puedan visitar en nuestro salón de exposiciones temporales. Como pueden ver, tenemos la réplica que está haciendo la gira nacional de Juanita, la dama de Ampato, o también conocida como la niña que bajó de los cielos. Visita el Museo de Caraz y siéntete orgulloso de nuestro pasado.